Allow me to introduce you to Sid's evening ritual for rest and relaxation.
You have a name for it? That's so lame.
Okay, first off, we have a strict no shoes policy.
Okay.
Next, we'll get some pillows going and a nice blanket. And then we will crack into this jigsaw puzzle.
Aw, kitty. I mean, yeah, I guess that could be cool.
And a pro tip, let's brush our teeth now so we can go to bed as soon as we're sleepy.
Okay, now that friggin' rules.
I would love to relax, but I gotta finish grading these papers.
Oh no, Scraps, you don't have to pretend to be a teacher anymore.
Who's Scraps? It's Professor Scraps. It's a hard job, and Lord knows the pay ain't great. But at the end of the day, I love my students.
What?
Don't ask. It's too stupid.
Three, two, one.
Vă prezentăm Sheldon, un fizician nefrotic și un tocilar.
Captain, I'm getting an unusual reading.
Colegul de cameră Leonard, un fizician timid și un tocilar. Penny,
Oh, hi.
vecina minunată și o adevărată petrecăreață.
Who's next?
I'd like to try a slippery nipple.
Și geniile Howard și Raj, colegi de distracție. Teoria haosului are în sfârșit o casă. Teoria Big Bang cu 4 episoade la rând. Mâine la Warner TV.
New York, to me, was sort of the center of everything I thought was wonderful in show business, which was, you know, paradise to me. Being from Columbia, South Carolina, show business seemed unreachable. And New York was the center of it. Broadway shows, not just musicals, non-musicals as well. And everything about New York thrilled me, and coming here, the look of the city, it is a great city to look at. It's a remarkable city because of the rivers and the bridges. It never leaves me, the idea of New York City. And New York City, to me, I'm sorry to say, it's sort of stupid of me, but New York City is Manhattan. It's not the other boroughs, although I liked the other part of New York, but Manhattan was New York. You know, I was still already alive when they built Radio City and the Chrysler Building, and I believe the Empire State. I was a child, but they were building the Empire State soon after I was born. And New York had these remarkable architectural things about it, and it had everything I was interested in, which was the theater and the shows and wanting to express what you cared about. And it doesn't look like any other city, New York. There's true, other cities have bridges and so on, but it's not, the bridges don't take you to the center of the world. Everything is poured into this little place. I'm not a person who sort of plans. I believe that events carry me along, as they do almost everyone. And I take them as they go. And every time I've moved, it's turned out to be for good reason. But that's just luck. That's just chance. You know, I've lived everywhere. I've lived in Paris for 20 years. I've lived in London. I've lived in Los Angeles, New York, and I've made movies in Brazil and in Greece and everywhere on earth. And but New York is the center, the metropolis that takes everything that's happening in the world at the moment, and you're aware of it here.
I
do have a kind of dyslexic, I guess they would call it dyslexic, I really don't know. But when I mean to say New York, I say America, and vice versa. And so it just comes out that way. For me, New York represents the essence of it's the idea of America, isn't it? I mean, the idea of all these immigrant groups living together, coming here, working out the differences, retaining as much as possible culture, and creating a country. My parents were born on Elizabeth Street, on 232 and 241 Elizabeth Street. They're still there, the buildings. They were born in 1910, 1912, or whatever. They were married in 1933, moved out to Sunnyside, Queens, I think, and then to Corona, Queens. And I was born in Flushing Hospital in 42, and then moved back to Elizabeth Street in 1949, which was kind of a shock for me, in a way, because I had been used to a different world. But from what I can remember, New York for me comes from that area that I grew up in, which was Elizabeth Street and Mott Street and Mulberry and Houston, Prince, Spring. Well, how should I put it? There were films that, I have many favorite films, and there are many that change you in a way, but I was enveloped in film in a way. Film was around me all the time, everywhere. You don't live in a theater. People think you do because you say that. It's just part of your life. It's a habit, in a way. And having had the asthma, yes, I did spend a lot of time there, but I also spent it other places. So film became part of the narrative of your life, so that I'm seeing things happen in front of me in the streets and in church and in school and in the streets again, and in the apartment, in the house, in the tenement, in the family, all that, in the hallways, very important hallways. And that, for me, is cinema. You see, so I'm saying, well, I see this kind of thing up there. It's the bad and the beautiful, it's Sunset Boulevard. But over here, imagine if this could be somehow translated. That also meant censorship, you see, because you had censorship at the time. But imagine what I hear and see, and what I'm part of, even to a certain extent. It goes on a screen. It's amazing. This would be an extraordinary thing. What's accepted as a beautiful image from Hollywood was not necessarily important here. There was another kind of beauty. There's still a lot of stories that came out of New York. And don't forget, filmmaking did start here in New York, Fort Lee, New Jersey, and that sort of thing. Great train robbery was shot here. So there's still a lot of stories about New York. Then New York had to be created in LA. Didn't ultimately had to be created. So there was an idea of New York, but in each studio had its own idea of what New York looked like, suggesting New York. Whether it's Von Sternberg's Underworld or the city streets or Scarface, or many of the films talking about early talkies, and particularly the Crowd, even, which was kind of a heightened New York in a sense, the King Vidor film, which was a New York of the soul in a way. But I think they had to create their own idea of New York. You just couldn't get the equipment here. I mean, some people did. Vidor did, I think, or Mamoulian did to a certain extent, and a few others. But primarily, they had to create an idea of New York. And so, as a young filmgoer, we understood the codification of what those images meant, whether it was Public Enemy, or one could say that's Chicago, but not necessarily. Any of these films, we understood that it meant that it was a New York street. It meant this was a neighborhood on the Lower East Side. It meant it was the Italian neighborhood, the Jewish neighborhood, all the sort of thing that we would accept as being New York. It seemed to me that a lot of the stories come out of New York because of the extraordinary collision, in a sense, and the collision of all the different cultures and the immigrants coming together, all of this creating a life here in the streets, and also a culture. In some cases, subcultures, but very, very strongly a culture. And just the drive to write music, the drive to perform on stage, the drive to make films, the drive to write, all of this, painting, everything was happening here in the streets, really. Of course, I'm talking about a certain level, you know, and that level fed beautifully into cinema, you know, so that the stories were propelled just like songwriters. You can't think of making a musical or anything about vaudeville or anything about performing without dealing with Broadway at the time, you know, whether it's a silent film or not. And so naturally, the first sound films became all singing, all talking, all dancing, and that sort of thing. So you could see what you could see on Broadway all across the country, and sometimes in color, a certain kind of color which doesn't exist anymore. But in any event, I think all those stories were driven that way. Besides the other idea of the American epic, the idea of manifest destiny pushing west, you know. So New York itself, because of its strategic position, even today, I think, you'll never tire of getting stories from New York. It'll always happen. There's always different cultures coming in. There's different, it's the old story, standing on a street corner in New York, you'll hear many different languages. Any street corner, you know. And this goes back to even when, even cabbies, taxi drivers had their own language. I always talk about this. They always had their own language. I mean, now the different ethnic groups come in, and you have a predominant certain ethnic group, let's say, driving taxis now. But back in the 30s and 40s, it was Brooklynese. The famous So This Is New York, Richard Fleischer's first film, where the cabbie is talking to the family who just came in from the Midwest, visiting as tourists, and they put subtitles on the screen. It was Brooklynese. Then you see it in Arsenic and Old Lace and all that sort of thing. And it took a little longer, I think, for it to change. Again, and because of the communication at the time, basically just radio. So things have changed with television. I'm talking about 50, 60 years ago, where Brooklynese stayed Brooklynese. You know, it really did. And then as television started to pervade everything, particularly news channels, the accents start to get lost. In any event, these languages constantly are changing here, constantly alive, constantly creating something new. And from that, pretty much any place here in the city, Manhattan in particular, you have energy. That's the nature of this place, the energy of it. And it's the old, there are 8 million stories in the city. What are they now, 20 million? 20, 15 million or so. It's still a lot of stories. And they keep coming. Everybody's got them.
Come on.
Vrei să vezi un film vineri seara?
Why do you smile?
Ce zici de două?
Brace for impact.
Filme celebre. În fiecare vineri de la 20:30 la Warner TV. De data aceasta cu Trenul de 15 și 17 spre Paris și Fantomele trecutului.